Hi, Casey. How are you today?
Hi, Erin. How are you?
Good. Is there feedback there? Let me just turn down my volume for a minute. All right, let's try that again. Can you say something?
Yeah. Hi. How are you?
Much better. There's a little
Okay.
bit of feedback on my end.
Sure.
So, welcome to Junior Achievements Career Speaker Series. Thank you today for joining us for an interview. I'd like you to introduce yourself, please.
I'm Casey Riley. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Newport Restaurant Group.
Thank you for being here, Casey. So,
Thank you
can
for
you
having me.
share with us what exactly it is that you do in your role?
Sure. So I basically manage all of the operations for our company. So we have restaurants, we have a hotel, we have a food market, we run events, private events. So I basically am responsible for all aspects of operations throughout our company.
That sounds very interesting, and
Yeah.
I'm interested to know how your journey into getting into this role. Where did you start and how did you wind up being in charge of such large events for a large group such as Newport Restaurant Group?
So I began in the industry as a teenager. I was a dishwasher, uh, right in high school, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with kind of my life at that point. I wasn't somebody that kind of knew that early on. So I got into the business basically at the ground level. I worked my way up. I decided in my early 20s, I'd gone to college, but it just wasn't for me. So I decided in my early 20s to go to culinary school. I went to culinary school in New York. And from there, I graduated and I worked in a great restaurant in Boston. I moved to Boston and I worked in Boston for several years. And then I moved to Rhode Island and had my first chef job. So I became a chef of my own restaurant in a hotel and eventually led my way to the company I work for now, Newport Restaurant Group, where I was the chef at Castle Hill Inn in Newport for many years. And at one point in that kind of evolution of the company, they wanted to basically branch out and become a restaurant company. And the president at that time, who is still my current boss, asked me to become a culinary director. And so from there, I became a chief operating officer. So I've kind of just had this path through my industry of, basically start washing dishes and end up, leading a pretty big company. So.
I really like that story, especially where you started from as a dishwasher,
Yeah,
as a young teenager, as a dishwasher, and it exploded into this great career for you, which is fantastic. Going back to, being in college and realizing that college wasn't really for you and going to culinary school,
mhm,
what led to that decision and what was the difference between the college that you went to and culinary school? Where were
sure.
those differences?
So for me, I had also been working in a restaurant. Obviously, I started as a dishwasher. I became a cook pretty quickly. I don't know, maybe the chef I worked for, I grew up in New Mexico, so this was in New Mexico. Maybe he just saw something in me and he gave me an opportunity to start cooking. So I was doing that and I was just going, I basically went to my state university and I studied kind of general studies because again, I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do. So my mom was like, you have to go to school. So I went to school, and in that time frame, I really understood that I loved cooking. I just loved it. I loved the excitement of it. I loved the adrenaline rush of cooking in a fast-paced restaurant. And I met a person that was basically a recruiter for Culinary Institute of America that was an alumnus, and that person got introduced to me. He kind of talked to me about the school. In hindsight, I realized he was kind of paid to recruit across the country. But I went and visited. So I went from New Mexico. I visited the school in New York, and I knew the minute I walked on that campus that was the right place for me. So I left the university, planned my way to go to culinary school. I was fortunate that my mom could help me get there. And once I got into culinary school, it was just like, this is perfect for me. And so the differences really are, in a university, there's a core core group of studies that lead you to a specific degree, and you know, and it's really classroom. There are labs, of course, if you're in a STEM field, but the real difference is that's a university, so it's a very formalized kind of program of study. Whereas in the culinary school that I went to, it's a trade school. That's what it is. We learn, cooking is a trade. And today, culinary schools have kind of adopted more business classes, and you can get bigger degrees now. Back when I was there, the only thing you could get was an associate's degree, and today you could get a bachelor's degree at most culinary or hospitality schools. So, but the big difference was it's a trade. I learned a trade.
And that is a great segue into talking about skills and skill sets and trades,
Mm-hmm.
And not every student has to go down your traditional pathway of high school into a four-year college. There are other avenues, such as, you went to a traditional high school and you worked a job and realized that the traditional college wasn't right for you. So you found another avenue to go down and learn a specific skill set. I have a question for you, though. It's really interesting to learn that you're from New Mexico and you moved out east on your own as a young man to go to culinary school. What was that journey like for you? Thinking about when you were younger and talking to younger students and making that choice to leave your familiar surroundings, your family, and what you know, to really strike out on your own and learn a new skill for your career and your life.
Well, I think when you're young, you only kind of, I mean, all of us, even when you get older, you only know what you know. So at that time, I knew I wanted to study this. And so that was the most important decision. Going there was culture shock. I mean, New York is a totally different world than New Mexico in all aspects. I remember one of my first days there was these two guys, and they started like yelling at each other. They were like bickering. And I thought, wow, they're going to fight. Because in New Mexico, if you started talking that way to anybody, the next thing would be you'd be fighting. But no, they were just New Yorkers. So, and they just had a very demonstrative kind of style of communication. So, and of course the weather was a lot different too. I mean, it was colder, but those things were not really things that I focused on. I really wanted this. I really wanted to learn this trade, and getting that access to something that I really felt passionate about. That was most important to me. Was that I had found something I was very passionate about, and I would recommend that to anyone to really consider that. College is awesome. Now, I have two teenagers. I talk to them about this a lot. If you want to go to college, great. That's going to be great. But the most important thing is you really find something you love to do, because by the way, college is a lot more expensive today than it was, back when I was looking at it. Even for a state school, state schools tend to be more affordable, but it's still a big expense. It's a big commitment, and I think it's not for everybody. And there are a lot of ways to be successful in this world. A ton.
That's another great point. It's so important to consider that, in thinking about your future, and the price tag of college is not cheap. It is definitely an investment. And for students to go into college without much guidance, or really thinking about their future and taking on this insurmountable debt for something that may not be a right fit for them, or studying something that may not lead to a career that they're interested in, it is important to take that into consideration, and knowing what other avenues that they have for their education and career journey. And speaking with you, this is excellent information for students to have, and a great resource to know that there are other potential ways of having their career and education journey take off.
I totally think so. I think, for me, it's if you don't enjoy something, you're not going to be successful at it. So it doesn't really matter if you have the greatest education you've ever had. If it's a pursuit you're not enjoying, you're not going to be very happy, and the chances of you being successful will be much lower. So again, I don't disparage the college experience at all. I think it's awesome, and I think it's something that everybody should really look at doing. In fact, I did. I did go to college. I just learned that it wasn't for me. So I would encourage people to really especially young people, to give a lot of thought to what you want to do, and just take it slow. Take some pressure off. I'll be honest with you, we employ a lot of young people in our businesses, and we have a lot of college graduates who work in our restaurants, and they're not doing the work that they got a degree in because they love working in restaurants. So
And being a chef, I'm sure because you were a chef while you
yeah.
were in school, learning the culinary skill and trade, and like you said, you worked your way up where you had your own restaurant, running your own kitchen. But I'm sure you put in a lot of work and a lot of hours. Can you talk about that a bit? Letting students know that you really do start from the ground up.
Well, I think again, if you're going to be successful, you have to work hard. You have to commit to your pursuit. So I think every career path has a different requirement of that person. So as a chef, you're basically working when other people are not working because they're out dining. So you have to know that. You have to know you're going to miss, the football game. You're going to miss birthdays. You're going to miss some holidays. Chances are very good if you take that career step that you're going to live a little bit different life. What I've always said is I never had to fight the Saturday, Sunday crowds when I went out. So when I went to the beach on Monday, there was nobody there. I had the beach to myself. I didn't have to worry about that. Or when I went to the grocery store or anywhere else. So there's some advantages. It's just, but if you love what you're doing, you'll find your way to work that out. But yeah, I think it's hard work. It's always effort. It's dedication to what you're doing. It's dedication to learning. Learning is very, very important. I think people tend to think they reach a certain level at times. No, you've got to continue to learn. You've got to continue to especially as you advance in your career, it gets harder to learn new things, and you have to seek them out.
In your role now as chief operating officer, you're not so much in the kitchen, hands-on
No.
cooking and using your culinary skills. I'm sure you're utilizing the skills you learned in culinary arts, but you also have another skill set. Do you enjoy your role that you're doing now, and do you miss being in the kitchen?
See, everybody asked me that question, so I knew it was coming. So I say to everybody, my favorite job. I've had a lot of different jobs. They've always been in hospitality since I was a teenager, but I've had different roles and different responsibilities along the way. My favorite job was being in the kitchen, working in that environment, the camaraderie, again, the energy. It was my favorite job, but it did take a toll on me. So, and that doesn't take a toll on everybody, but it did take a toll on me. And so I had to make some changes once I kind of got in my 40s. But I also recognized in myself that I had something else to give. So I kind of reached a level as a chef where I don't know how much further I was going to go with my skill sets as a chef. I could have been successful at it and just kept going. But I had this other thing inside of me that I wanted to share, which was perspective and leadership. And I wanted to give more. And so I was fortunate to be at kind of that place at the same time the company that I worked for needed somebody to do that. So it was just a natural kind of transition to really what's a very hard set of skills, knowing how to run a kitchen, get food out, make people happy, mentor and develop in a more narrow kind of lane, basically taking people, teaching them how to cook, teaching them how to manage, to then, now I've got to manage an organization, and I've got to manage multiple people that I don't have that same close relationship with that I did in my kitchen. Right, everybody in my kitchen, I knew everything about them. I knew everything about their lives. A lot of the people that work for me now or that I work with now, I don't know all those things, right? So I have to manage and communicate much differently now. And I will tell you that that's my favorite job, was being a chef, but I love my job now. I do. It's a very rewarding job.
So in the job you have now and acquiring that position at the right time, your boss, did he see the potential in you and the growth, and really trusted that you would take this role and develop it and develop your skills to be the best that you can be in this role?
I think he did. I think he saw in me the potential for more. I don't know that I saw it in myself at that time, but he saw it and he took that chance with me. And he definitely took a chance because I'd never done anything like that. And if you've ever met my boss, he's a wonderful person, but he's not the most detailed trainer. So there was no training program. It was like, go be the culinary director of the company. You'll figure it out. And and along the way, I did. And by the way, with a lot of mentoring from him, he would coach me on my behavior and on my thinking, and my communication style, and along the way. And it's been an incredible journey.
Thank you for sharing. And it is very important for people to have mentors, no matter how old you are or where you are in your
Oh,
career. Having mentors definitely goes a long way for your training and your skill set.
yes, it does. I think being a mentor is incredibly rewarding, and being mentored is just it's everything as you kind of grow in your life. It really
Yes.
is.
And one last question, Casey.
Yes.
What is one piece of advice you would give young people as they consider a career
Mm.
and education journey?
So I think the most important thing advice I would give is what, be a good listener. Stay very curious. I think curiosity is something that's getting lost at times nowadays. I think people need to be very curious. Understand that your perspective or your worldview mm, is yours. It's not everyone else's. So stay very curious. Be open-minded. Work really, really hard. And I think the final thing I would say is just have a lot of respect for other people, and your employers. It's a respect in our society is, I think something we need to really take a hard look at, because I just feel like there's a kind of a loss of that. So I would say listening, curiosity, hard work, and respect. That's my advice. Just focus on those things.
That's some great advice. And thank you so much, Casey, for joining us today. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.